We have a couple more gifts to hand out here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm Mike Mercado. It's Devin Tingle. It's Paul Chivari. We thank you so much for making us a part of your holiday season. And as we ring in a brand new year, as we settle down from the holidays these last few weeks, it's time to take a look at the past champions, the teams, the individuals that climbed the mountaintop and have all the glory to themselves in the year 2023 of our Lord. The football gods, the baseball gods, the badminton gods, all of them all have new champions and representatives, and they will all be defending their crowns in 2024. And before we start talking about individual teams and people who won the whole dang thing, let's go around the cubicle and let's talk a little bit about any kind of standout champions, any standout games of those moments that a champion was crowned, whether it was maybe a title fight in the UFC or in boxing. Was it something that kind of piqued your interest in the PGA Live Golf Tournament or in NASCAR and F1? Obviously, we all talk about the major sports here, but anything pops to mind right away when we start talking about champions in 2023?
I'm going to start with the Rangers because, as Paul can probably attest, that was their first ever World Series victory, I remember correctly, because we remember it was 2011, 2012. I believe that was the year they lost back-to-back.
10 and 11.
I'm sorry, 10 and 11.
And 11, they were down to the Cardinals were down to their last strike and came back and won Game 6 and Game 7.
What about you, Paulie? The Rangers being a big one.
It's funny that Devin takes baseball because I wasn't going to take baseball, even though that's always where I go. Yeah. Because I think, if I'm going to say baseball, Adolis Garcia hitting a walk-off home run in Game 1 was pretty big, set the tone of the series. I think Rangers probably would have won it regardless of how Game 1 turned out. But
he's going to pick soccer.
No, actually basketball.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty cool seeing Joker, seeing Jokic actually get his championship. Because I think, we talked about off the air about legitimizing certain athletes and whatnot. And it's like, it's cool when an athlete wins an MVP, but then you think of like a dude like Steve Nash, who probably won it in years that Kobe or LeBron could have won it, but he never had the championship to back him up, even though he was a really good player and played great those years. But Jokic, though, a great player and probably like the storyline of right now of these times. So to have the championship to go with it tells the greater NBA story. And it was really neat seeing his work ethic and how I love about the dude anyway, how, he's not sitting there celebrating the championship and going crazy and whatnot. Oh, yeah, it's like back to work. He's like, man, I just can't wait to go back.
I want to go.
Yeah.
When is the parade?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too far. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
For me, it's funny. I was going to pick the champions of 2023. I think most people think I would go with football, right? I would go with the Chiefs. I was going to go with the Denver Nuggets as well because it was just something really cool about, like you said, that whole scenario and kind of seeing that champion, a new champion being crowned. I think just as cool as the Rangers winning it, having the Nuggets win it for the first time and kind of like seeing a fan base in a city.
Vegas Golden Knights won it for the first time too.
I was going to say, what's funny for me,
though, stand out for you,
so
though.
That's the standout for me.
Yeah.
Because when I went to Vegas, to shout out to Jen and Alex Mercado, my brother got married that weekend where the Knights had their parade. When they were hoisting Stanley Cup. And it was funny, the night before that, the Denver Nuggets were at the MGM or the hotel across. They were in town celebrating. So I always kind of think of 2023 as being a really cool year of champions. Some interesting, cool, fun time champions. I mean, just in that list, that's three times a champions where they were all first-time winners, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm sure it's happened before.
Well, like that idea.
Normally there's a repeat champion or someone that's
I guess
has
Las Vegas,
one from the past.
WNBA Las Vegas team ended up winning the finals.
Their second
one. So Las Vegas has back-to-backs, but I think it was just pretty cool. 3-time, first-time champions in 1 year.
This wouldn't be a three-peat. What we call this, a three-first?
Yeah, first-timers. I think that was kind of fun.
There you go. 3 1s, 3 firsts.
So I think that was really cool, and a little bummer here in Chicago that there weren't any Chicago winners, but I guess that's hopium and optimism spring eternal, right?
What else is new?
Yeah. So, Paul, let's talk about some champions. What we got on the list of just some standouts that you've noticed, or on the very least on top of mind that of other champions in sports that really...
Well, let's knock out. We already talked about, I think, 2 out of the big 4. Other ones being like Kansas City Chiefs, of course, winning the Super Bowl, and a really good one against the Philadelphia Eagles that could have gone either way. But coming out on top, I thought it was the story of the NFL. That was, the best team.
So let's talk about that for just a second. Coming off of that big championship game of 2 marquee teams, a lot of marquee players, and the NFL season that we've had up to this point, so many injuries, so many star players, just another year of the war of attrition. Does it surprise you that we still have 2 teams in some form of contention throughout the entire season that were that far in the season, because my biggest contention about NFL is the team that ever loses the Super Bowl always has the toughest road back, because to lose it and get that far is such a backbreaker. But for both of the teams,
it's not always the case, but it's definitely been a known case where it
Yes.
happens. I mean, but I think that speaks to, one, how good championship teams truly are. So a team like the Chiefs that, they weren't flukish. They've won another one in this era. They've been there now 3 times out of 4 years. Like they were fulfilling a destiny in a way. It's not that the Eagles weren't, but it's just such a long grind to get back there. And with the struggles we've seen the Eagles and Chiefs have down the stretch, we haven't even seen what January looks like. It's a long, hard road, and that's any sport. If you're making repeated long trips into the playoffs, it's going to be wear and tear on your body. And I think, we'll see what happens in 2024, with the Super Bowl coming up here. Both those teams look like they could be favorites, but things could change.
Where you at, Devin, when it comes to that weird outcome, the NFL, where we don't know what's going to happen in the big tournament when it comes, but the fact that we've gone this far and both teams stuck around as long as they have?
I mean, it's not really anything too uncommon, because let's take a look. The Patriots lost the Super Bowl. The Giants were back the very next year. And I mean, of course we're saying, things like, I don't want to get this too into football, because I don't really see the Chiefs or Eagles being either team to win the Super Bowl.
We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's another thing altogether here. But, you say it's the hardest road to get back. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, you will see the team that loses the Super Bowl still have a decent season, I will say. I mean, we saw the Rams won it and had a terrible season last year. And I mean, the Bears were in the Super Bowl, and they have not
gone back,
done anything really since.
It goes to what we talk about is organizationally, it's really important to see the sustainability. Paulie, keep going. What else we got?
Well, I wanted to say it was kind of gross seeing Manchester City finally realize their destiny in the European Cup, the Champions League.
How about you sing the Manchester song for us?
Was it Blue Moon?
My baby takes the morning train.
No, that's Manchester United.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All credit killed. That's it. The Sports Cubicle will no longer have any credit internationally.
But as I was kind of looking up a couple here, I'm glad I didn't forget about this one. Probably one of the biggest moments. It wasn't a yearly championship, but it was a tournament earlier this year. Tournament ended. It was all best of ones. Ended in a big moment between the sport's 2 biggest stars. Do you know what I'm talking about? International, played on a diamond.
Oh, my goodness, yes. I mean, when you talk about what ended up happening, and we're talking about over $1 billion worth of talent in one moment representing 2 countries that love this sport, really energized, which was a crazy season that culminated in the Texas Rangers.
Oh, no, but I was talking about the World. Oh, you're talking about that.
The World Baseball Classic,
where
you had that start the baseball season, essentially, where now that we know how much money Shohei is making, just going 30 minutes, and how much his contemporary makes and what it meant for the sport, and just that last pitch, that last swing, that moment where they all run to the mound, and what was a great World Baseball Classic, by the way, which was a great road to get to that game. All the stars that were created in those moments. I think that's a great example of something that happens very early on in the year that kind of loses traction as all the other sports that's happening, but the WBC was on top tier moments of the sports year.
And this definitely felt like the year everyone was really just into it, and Paul said it best, it was that storybook ending, Mike Trout versus Shohei Ohtani. Can you imagine how great a team would be if they had both of them? And also, Tim Anderson was on fire. Can you imagine how great a team would be with him at second base?
Playing second base, too. It was
America's second baseman.
Why did it take Mark DeRosa, who's never managed at any level before, to be like, you know what, maybe to make this easier, we move this guy who's good at shortstop to second base so we could have another good shortstop play.
We need Elvis Andrews at second, damn it. Moving on.
Roman Reigns wins the WWE championship match
Explain
against
to me why
Cody
that's
Rhodes.
important, though, because I know the name.
Your tribal chief and acknowledge your suburban chief in Mike Mercado.
So essentially, in 20 seconds, Cody Rhodes, the son of Dusty Rhodes, leaves WWE after bad creative, helps create a rival company that's currently on Warner's television, comes back to WWE, and his sole story is winning the championship his daddy never won. Roman Reigns is The Rock's cousin. He is straight from Central Casting, has had the championship for over 1,000 days. All his family members are on that. It is the ultimate good guy versus bad guy. and Roman Reigns won on WrestleMania Sunday night main event. Everybody goes home crying, and now we will see what happens in Philadelphia as one CM Punk is now back. Will he be main eventing? Will Chicago hoist a championship in 2024?
That is the closest bet we have to any Chicago anything winning a championship.
Really fast, since we're on it, if CM Punk wins the WWE Championship next year, can we celebrate it on the show?
Sure. All
right, we're doing it. You book it. Clip it. We're doing it. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Paul. So it was a fun year. I think there's so many champions. I mean, just thinking on top of my mind.
Also, like with the World Baseball Classic, some other big annual, or not annual, but the events that come across every few years or so. Women's World Cup in soccer. You had Spain walking away with that one, and then the controversy of the Spanish women's team leading into it and leading out of it too. And Megan Rapinoe not being able to fulfill her destiny of her retirement, winning another World Cup. The U.S. women's went down early was another storyline. Rugby World Cup this year was exciting. Came down to South Africa defeating New Zealand, and they were the previous two Rugby World Cup champions. But it culminated in South Africa, I think, playing a defensive standoff. It was a really low-scoring one. I don't totally get rugby, but I did kind of watch that one and figure out, like, I want to say it was like 12-10 or something like that. And it's like, think of it like NFL scores, how that would be. That would be crazy, like kind of a lower sort of score like that. But that was exciting. I watched the Cricket World Cup, and that came down to the hosts, India, who didn't lose the entire tournament until the final, and they lost to Australia, who's another storybook program, or international cricket champion. They're a great country. They've won multiple championships, but it's with the way in cricket it worked out where India bat first, so they score all their runs until they're done, and then Australia has to match it or beat it. And it was, even though I don't really watch the sport, I don't really know the sport, but I kind of get the sport a little bit, it was neat to watch in real time Travis Head for Australia just kind of take all those runs back by himself. It was just really impressive. It was just a great win for Australia.
Cricket? Nobody understands cricket. You got to know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
So that is an interesting champion. I'm glad you brought up for our international friends. And shout out to Raphael and Casey Jones from the only Oscar-winning movie, a championship of a movie, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for that drop. Paul, Jose Canseco bat. Oh, I love that whole scene. Paul, who else won championships?
That dates that movie so totally hard. Does, yeah. I'd have to look up some of the stuff. Ryder Cup was this year. I couldn't tell you who won it though. The 2023 Ryder Cup.
So I think
it's got to be Europe. Europe usually is the one that wins
Europe.
it. Yeah.
I think what's interesting about 2023 though is the transition going into 2024. What it means for so many fan bases, so many athletes, and what the conclusion of that year is going to mean. This has become a year where a lot of potential legacies were built, a lot of questions were asked, and some answers may have been given, but we're still now in this part of, I think, sports history where in the next 2 or 3 years, a lot of interesting things are going to come to fruition, and a lot of people are going to ascend to certain statuses in all these different sports. And I think 2023, when we look back at it, is going to be those moments of who won their championships, who won their MVPs, who made the big acquisitions, who made the big hires, who made the big fires. And we'll be talking about some of those teams on next year's championship list. And I think that's what's really fascinating about this conversation is the time capsule this is to see how some of these teams have become. And we all know it in a sport like the NHL or an NFL, it could be a random team wins the whole thing and throws this entire list out of whack in 2024. But as we kind of close things up and we look into 2024 and we look at who will be the college national championship, it won't be the same team that was on this list in Georgia. It's going to be a different team that wins it this coming up
year.
I
was glad you brought up Georgia. That was another one that they get snapped their win streak, but they started off the year as champion once again.
And we'll find out what happens along all these other collegiate sports, right? With so many different legacy programs trying to find their way in this new TV era and these new TV deals. So there's so much to look into in 2024. But Dev, any final thoughts on the champions, the people that were crowned, that got their flowers, that hit the podium in 2023?
They still hand out flowers for championships?
I mean, I want my flowers.
I feel like race car drivers get
I will
flowers.
gladly give you flowers sometime,
Thank you,
Mercado.
sir.
I'll go pick them from the nice WCPT garden,
Thank
and it's
you.
just the weeds that look extra pretty.
And all the board ops that they buried.
Shh. We love you, Matt Meliska. Going back to this, though, I should have said Zach. Going back to this, though, it's very nice to, get teams like the Texas Rangers winning their first one, the Chiefs, cementing their dynasty, as it seems that's the way they're going to go here. Again, the Nuggets are another team that won their first one. We went over this. We had so many teams win their first, and it's going to a point where it's like, we're not going to see that much more because there's so few teams that have not won. And there's some in every league, let's be real here. But, it's going to be interesting to see, I want to go dive deeper into Hulk because we're seeing how NFL as a whole is really changing as a sport right now and how everyone's playing. That's another topic for another day here. So it's very nice to see just, like you said it best at the end there. It's like all these sports have, so, baseball has new rules. It's so just like everything's changing and the games are still being, on most sides, competitive depending on what teams you like to enjoy. And, of course, playoffs are always entertaining time for any sport. And I guess I'll just leave it on that.
Shout out to Novak Djokovic for winning his 24th title. Still continuing to set the record for men's Grand Slam singles. It was like John Rahm won Masters, Brooks Koepka won PGA Championship. I don't have the names of the guys that won. There's like a guy that won his first one for Brian Harmon won the English, the British Open. And I don't remember who did U.S. Open, but then also shout out to Joseph Newgarden winning the Indy 500. I don't know who won the IndyCar circuit this year, but Ryan Blaney winning the NASCAR circuit. So many champions to name. College basketball, I was trying to remember this the other day. We had the final last year was, I think, down to it was like San Diego State or something like that going against like a stronger program. And now I don't remember. It was such a random one last March.
The number 4 seed UConn Huskies beat San Diego State 76-59 to win the NCAA men's tournament.
Thank you, Mercado.
So I think on that note, any Chicago team going to be in a championship in 2024?
No. I mean,
I would
if
say
it is,
no.
it's the Cubs, but no.
All right, so that's okay. So better question is, on a tier list, the Cubs are the team most likely to. And then
Playoffs, possibly. Championship, no.
unless the Bulls are in the in-season tournament championship.
Were we counting that?
Aren't they knocked out already?
We'll find out if the Lakers win a championship, whether or not we're counting it or not.
I got nothing
We'll wait
for
till
you.
later.
The Sky won't. The Fire won't. The
so-
Hawks won't. The Bears. The Bears might. It's Bears or Cubs next year.
What
That's
about the
it.
Chicago Wolves? How are they doing?
Probably better. Yeah. Didn't they? They almost won a cup recently, or did win a cup. Yeah. So there you go. The Wolves. That's your best bet.
Wolves, howl, baby. What's their catchphrase?
These guys are animals.
He's Devin Tingle. He's Paul Chivari. I'm Mike Mercado. Happy 2023 and
And Paul's into furries.
good health 2024.